as we see it today, it seems as though that we have progressed to a certain extent, and now we see a very heightened democratic sense within the Thai general public. We see protests, we see violence. Some people may perceive that to be one of the growing pains of a developing democracy. Would you agree?
Well, I could. You could say it is part of the growing pains, but I think in our case, I may be wrong, but I think that we don't have full understanding of the term democracy. For example, democracy has to be based on equality, has to be based on justice, has to be based on several other things. But you take, for example, the Thais. We call ourselves Thailand, land of the free.
Yes, sir.
And I don't think that we in Thailand have been able to distinguish between freedom, liberty, and some of these, sort of like abstract terms, the concepts, we find difficult to appreciate the real meaning. So to us, when we talk about freedom, our freedom is not accompanied by duty or responsibility. And I think that it's time that we have to learn that for every freedom there is also responsibility.
Yes, sir.
We are inclined to go for full freedom, to absolute freedom, which is not a way of life in a democratic country. The Thais would say that they want to be free. If they want to cross the street, they can walk across the street at any point and at any time.
Which is
the idea that you have to walk along the zebra crossing or you have to wait for the lights. So that's why the Westerners have accused the Asians of, being fond of being prone to jaywalking. So I think that creeps into our daily life, that we want to be free. Yes, but freedom has certain limitations, has certain constraints. And freedom, no freedom is absolute. Political freedom, civic freedom, whatever.
Yes, sir.
Even the term like there's several other terms that are not absolute, and yet the Thais insist on interpreting them in absolute terms.
Does this mean that over the past 70-some 80 years that we need to go back and start virtually from scratch once again to build those democratic foundations and democratic pillars?
I think a lot has to do. I'm not sure, because I have long past the age of school age, but I think that there must be something wrong with our curriculum and with our quality education. First of all, I'm not so sure whether the history textbooks that are distributed at school are the right kind of history that we want to teach our children. Because in most other countries, they talk about when you talk about history, we talk about the birth and the development, the progress, the victories from battles,
our version
the
of
loss
history
of our capitals.
Yes.
It's more like a chronology. I think history is real history is not a book that not only tells you what happens, but it tells you why and how, and what we can learn from that. So in our case, I think most history books, there might have been some improvements since then, but still, we still go for the dates of the reign, the achievements of the king, the feats of our army, and the victories or the defeats, or perhaps even sometimes the famines or whatever. But we don't look at the social side of history. I mean, we don't teach our children the real nature of history.
Or the more comprehensive
Regional history, for example.
Yes, sir.
There seems to be something lacking in that direction. And of course, everybody tells us, we go by the rote learning. We don't teach children to think. But how can you teach children to think when the teachers don't think?
True.
Because the teachers go by the textbooks too. So anything different from the textbooks And here again, the textbooks must be authorized by the Ministry of Education. I mean, it always amuses me when you talk about the official version of history.
Is there an official version?
There is none. It cannot be.
Yes, sir.
Because history is his story. When you write a history of a certain period of Thailand, it is your story. And when I write mine, I write my own version. Now, I'm not saying that yours is all incorrect or mine is all correct. No. We learned history from reading your book, reading my book, reading several other books.
Yes, sir.
And it is you who have to judge which one to go for.
Are we then turning full circle back to the fact that politicians and politics could possibly be the element that needs to be fixed?
That would be a subsequent step. I think we have to look very hard at the question of education. As I said, you know, curriculum, the way we train our teachers, the way the teachers teach their pupils. It's creeping along that you talk about the student-centered learning process. But here again, you don't see full implementation of that particular program. And I'm most worried about the quality of teaching in this country. And I think that you cannot blame the teachers, because there was a time in my younger days, some of the teachers training school were very reputable and had very good reputation, be it in Bansabechapaya, for example.
Yes,
in my days, we have some great teachers. We have
quality teachers being put out by the institutions.
And textbooks, I think, are very important.
But doesn't it come back to education?
So it is come back to the education, and then you train the future youth, and they all grow up to become teachers, become businessmen, become civil servants, become politicians. So the politicians is the end of the pipeline.
I see.
You have to look at the beginning of the pipeline.
But politicians are the ones who essentially determine what is being taught in schools. We have an education ministry.
Not in absolute terms, because children start learning from their childhood. So the first teachers of their lives will be their parents. And then there would be school teachers and their friends, their peers. Because it's a learning process, you see. The teachers have to know that they also can learn a lot from the children. But if the teachers have this kind of a one-dimensional attitude, that they are the one to teach, they know best, that's wrong.
You're talking about changing mindsets, essentially. The mindsets of the average Thai, the general population out there.
That's why the Thai children are hesitant in participating in class or in speaking up or in volunteering, because they always have to show respect to the teachers.
Yes, sir.
Because the teachers are sacrosanct in a way. They're sacred objects. They've been taught that their parents, you have to respect your teachers. In the morning when you go there, before you leave the school, you do that too. So how can you argue against somebody that you are told that to hold them in reverence?
It's like they're always right.
Yes. Just like in the Thai saying, ผู้ใหญ่ถูกเสมอใช่ไหม?
Yes, sir.
Older people are always right.
Always right, yes. In several crises that Thailand has seen, and you were directly involved in trying to solve one of the crises, yourself, a non-politician, someone who was widely accepted in several circles, brought in and trusted to actually spearhead Thailand into overcoming that particular crisis. When you look at the crisis that we are in right now, do you think that a non-politician is needed to spearhead measures to bring us forth from this particular crisis?
I don't think it is either a politician or a non-politician. I think what you need is a good man.